You're listening to the Why I Love Disney podcast. In this special quarantine edition, Ramin, David, and I discuss Frozen 2. There are plenty of spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, you might want to turn it off until you do. But if you have seen it, get ready to forge ahead. It's going to be fun. Are you ready? Let's go.
All right. The other thing is, it says in the beginning when they sing the song about the river, that lyric says, "Don't go too far or you'll be drowned." So I guess that would be the way Elsa would be drowned, would be to be frozen. Because that's what the mother sings at the beginning. So maybe that was part of that process. Because then Olaf says, I think Elsa went too far. And so she's...
And too far meaning like she found out the truth about her family, the dark parts of her family's history. But
went to a point where she couldn't, at this point, she can't come back until Anna breaks the curse.
Yeah.
Yeah, point of no return for her for sure, without help.
It's a common theme.
Yeah.
You know, finding out dark family secrets that have cursed you, right? Or there's curses. I mean, dadgum, Rey, Palpatine's.
Just thinking that.
You know what I'm saying? The whole breaking free of the expectations and the dark side that's cursed your family, and being able to declare, kind of overcome that strong power. That's a big thing.
Yeah.
Generational curses. Welcome to the Why I Love Disney podcast special quarantine edition, where we are going to rewatch or watch for the first time Disney movies on Disney Plus and talk about them, what we thought about them, maybe give them a little bit of a review, and maybe recommend some things to you at home. And hopefully start a conversation with you, what you thought this week. What's up, first of all? David, you doing good?
I'm doing great.
Ramin is here with us too. Hey, Ramin, how's it going?
It's going great.
Everything, you staying well?
Yeah, you trying? Yeah,
and distanced.
Trying
very
to
distant.
stay,
all right,
to stay apart.
Awesome. Well, we've got plenty of time these days to watch lots of things on Disney Plus, and thankfully we have Disney Plus. Today's movie that we're going to speak about is Frozen 2, which we are so thankful Disney brought out a little bit early for us. Actually, was scheduled to not be released on streaming till well in a few months in the distant future.
3 months early they released it.
And we got it because of the outbreak of the coronavirus. So one silver lining, in the bad, we got Frozen a little sooner. So anyhow, let's start off with this. All right, so Frozen 2, let's Rotten Tomatoes has it at 77%, which is lower than the first Frozen. And I know this may not be a fair thing, but just right off the bat, did you like it more or less than the first Frozen, or the same?
I would say just slightly less.
Slightly less than the first?
Just slightly.
I would say a little less.
A little less? I would also say a little less than the first one. But most sequels, I think very few sequels, I think anyone would say they liked it more than the original. Yeah. I think that's not a knock on the movie as much as it is just the nature of sequels in general. The story goes on. They say The Godfather 2 is the only real example of a sequel that's better than the original.
Some people think Toy Story 2.
Toy Story 2
is better. Okay. Than Toy Story.
You got a couple of examples, or The Empire Strikes Back is the kind of the crown jewel of the Star Wars original trilogy. But those are, I would say, exceptions.
Right.
Cars 2, definitely not as good as Cars 1. Ghostbusters 2, certainly not as good as the original Ghostbusters. They stopped there. But this is it's a really good film. I think we would all agree. And we're going to talk about it a little bit. So where do we start here with Frozen? What were I just saw it for the first time,
right, on
Disney Plus. You had seen it before, correct? Like, right. You had said the theater. You too.
Yeah, it's in theaters in January.
So can I give you my first thoughts?
Sure.
I started out. We're watching with the family, and about 20 minutes in, I start to really start to feel weird. Like, I start to have these thoughts. I do not love this movie's terrible. Like, I actually was thinking to myself, this feels made for DVD. It feels like it's moving too fast. It doesn't know what it wants to do. I actually was frustrated. And
there's a lot of music in the first 20 minutes. Was it the continual singing that was?
Maybe.
Okay.
It also felt just disjointed and kind of like they were trying to explain a lot.
Right, and they're doing it through music. I mean,
Through music.
She's singing, then Anna sings, and then
It reminded me of
Christoph sings
the
on.
Return of Jafar or the Mulan sequels that weren't for, that were straight to DVD. It just felt like there's a lot of explaining happening here. And even though the animation's great, it just didn't feel like great storytelling off the bat.
Right.
It's interesting you say that because I remember when I watched it, it was kind of weird. I had this thought. I'm like, oh yeah, this is a musical. Which is funny because I mean, the first one had a ton of music in it. It has like, but the fact that I had that thought, I think is kind of a reflection that the beginning of that movie felt a little bit taxing. Almost, it was kind of like, oh yeah, like this is the music was really kind of.
It dominates right at the beginning.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering if that
It might have had something
I
to
don't
do with it.
remember. I don't remember thinking that it wasn't good, but I definitely noticed up front, like, wow, we've gone from character to character in song pretty quickly, and they're kind of you're kind of seeing where everybody is and what's happened and what they're feeling,
And even up to the scene where Olaf gives the recap of everything that happened in the last movie. You remember that where he kind of like brings it's almost like we need this moment to bring everybody up to date. And in
case you hadn't seen
the first one. And again, I think he did it and it was done in a good way. I kind of
actually
smiled.
that was probably something that did make me laugh.
It did. I giggled a little bit and we laughed a little bit in that. But at the same time, I'm sort of I thought maybe I see why it needs to be there. But it sort of was like, I mean, really, like we've seen the first, like we don't need on the last episode recap right here. But again, it was a good way to do it.
Right.
It lent itself to this whole, like, in my mind, like what are we doing here? What's going on? Now that quickly changed for me. I actually felt like it was a really good movie, and I had 3 stages in this movie. I went from, I don't think this is not going to be very good, to it's pretty good, to okay, I really enjoyed this. This is a really good movie.
Do you remember at what point did you think this is pretty good?
Once they started on once we got into the new story,
right?
I found that interesting. I found that kind of the mystery and the intrigue kind of took over.
Right.
Also, the first song that hooked me was the one Christoph sang in the woods with the reindeer. I don't know the name of that song.
Lost in the Woods.
Lost in the Woods. Yeah. It's like the 80s. I remember just there's 80s power ballad with this long-haired, blonde-haired dude, and I'm thinking this is awesome. And I remember I just sort of loosened up after that and kind of leaned into the story. And so that was when it was good. And then at the end, like when the moment where I think where Anna kind of it's obvious Anna's got to save Elsa.
Right.
When that moment where Anna's got to step up and take her kind of have her moment, I think, okay, this is great.
Yeah. And the animation and from the stone giants, all the way through the forest, all that's just amazing.
It is great. And that's from the first moment. It's not even like that. The animation. It's funny that like that doesn't blow my mind anymore. It should, but you get so used to great animation that it's sad, isn't it? That that's not one of the first things you think of.
Well, then that's why it's good to go back and watch some of the older movies because you see the stages, even in the of computer animation, the modern animation, where you can see like how much it's progressed and what they're able to do is just unbelievable.
What was your favorite song in the movie?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
What was your favorite song in the movie?
I'm not sure either.
Okay, this brings up a good point for me. Let's talk about the soundtrack for a second.
It's different. It's not the first soundtrack is just this. I think the music is lighter, even though there's a lot of drama going on. These songs are a lot more serious to me, even Into the Unknown versus Let It Go. There's a different tone. It's a lot more grown up and a little more Broadway to me than the first movie was.
Yeah, I definitely I found them far less memorable, all of them. Even Into the Unknown. I remember before I saw the movie, you kind of check it out and you see the toys and you push the button and I'm like, there's not a great hook in that. Nobody's going to be singing this in 6 months. And that was kind of my intuition. And I think it's pretty much proven correct. Like, not that they're bad. It's still a great soundtrack, well written, but it didn't have the staying power that the first soundtrack had. And I was actually, in that sense, a little disappointed as I listened through Just a little too much to think about, a little too wordy.
That's kind of how I felt too.
A little too heavy. Just, I'm with you. It just needed to be. I don't know if it needed to be, but I like the lighter stuff. There was nothing I could really, other than Into the Unknown, I could not tell you one title of any other song, and I only know Into the Unknown because it's on the cover of the box on the toy, and because.
But I don't know that they probably did not want to again parody what they had done in the first movie. You're trying to think where are we going with this story, and it's just not the same. The first one is a lot of those songs are light and fun because Anna is kind of light and quirky and funny, and you don't really have those characters in this movie, so the songs are going to change, and the songs are more even more interwoven into the story. They're more about the drama of that story, so they don't seem to stand. But even the first movie, I mean, what's on a song where she's thinking about who knew we had 8,000 salad plates. I mean, it's still right out of the story. They're not really standalone songs. They're very much part of the story, but it's just that somehow these are a little more so. They're just so part of the script.
Okay, let's talk about the characters for a second. What did you guys think of Anna? Because she goes through quite a transformation. What did you guys think?
Did you find her protective disposition annoying or anything?
You said that last week when we talked about that. You said there was an attitude.
There's a different shift. In the first movie, she's kind of a naive, just glad that the gates have been opened. She's full of joy and kind of wonder. And in this movie, she's just a lot more burdened. I mean, not at the beginning, because even Olaf says, do you ever worry about this? She's like, no, because I have you and I have Elsa. But then all of a sudden, this whole thing with Kristoff, every time he says something, she gets so defensive. And when it was just a side, it's like, where did that part of her character come from? We haven't really seen that.
Yeah.
So she seemed a little moody.
It's interesting Anna. With her and Olaf, there seemed to be some out of nowhere character things that weren't explained. Like you don't know why.
Olaf I thought he seemed a little more cynical.
Right.
Like he's getting a little, do you realize the world's not almost like it's not a perfect place. Is anything permanent? It comes down to the end. Because the end, he finally says love is one thing that's permanent, but he starts realizing things are changing quickly and gets a little more.
You think that's a flaw in the movie, that they don't develop the characters are just kind of new. They kind of have these new
kind of skip some steps there,
and we don't know why.
Or like for both of those characters, I think I enjoyed them a little bit less myself.
Yeah.
And the second one than I did the first. Yeah.
I think it's that there's just so much information that they're trying to cover, and I can understand why they're doing that, because they have a lot of fans asking why this, and you're trying to cover all these things, but then you don't want to make a replica of what you've done before. So you're trying to, this is we're 6 years later in this production coming out. It's the kids that were 10 seeing it are now 16, 17 years old. So you're hitting a different, the characters have all grown. So Anna's, grown some. Yeah. I mean, of course, it hasn't been 6 years, I guess, in their time, but there's a passing of time, and you have changed. You've grown a little bit.
I think they do address it a little bit in the movie. I think in one of their conversations, Anna and Elsa, Anna's saying, we've been essentially through too much. I can't lose you again type thing. And then that was kind of an explanation for all this protectiveness. Yeah. I think there's some attempts there, but you just didn't get to see it on film. It just kind of immediately was that. And you're being introduced to kind of a more mature or experienced Elsa and how she's responded. So
I guess I felt like with all the proposal, if there's anything I would have cut, it was that it was almost that it seemed like it was put in there for comedic. He's going to try to propose and everything's going to go wrong, and then it didn't seem to make me laugh, or I don't think it made the audience when I saw it in the theaters laugh, and so. I just created more tension. And in a movie that's already got all this, will they make it? Will she figure? You had
to do something with Kristoff, right? Because what else did he do?
Yep.
I mean, really.
And because he's a great singer, everybody wants to hear him sing the song.
Well,
so
that was
gotta
my favorite song in the movie.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, like that section in the forest with the reindeer background, the whole '80s power ballad thing was kind of awesome. I think it added to the movie as far as the songs go. I'm with you though. Like it seemed a little unnecessary.
But that was a huge thing that fans probably wanted was, a proposal. What they wanted.
Well, that's true.
But
You're
could have been a short.
Yeah, you're right.
A separate thing. Yeah.
What's the themes that you felt stuck out to you? The themes that were kind of powerful to you. What would you say? There are the universal ones that I think that the movie is about, but there's some undercurrents of things that happen too. What were the most powerful moments for you?
One of the things I really liked was introducing the next right thing. I thought that was a good.
Explain that if someone hasn't watched. Like, what do you mean?
There comes to a point where Anna has to say, sometimes all you can do, what you've got to do is the next right thing. You don't know everything. You don't know what is going to happen down the road. All you can do is the next right thing. Yeah. And that's kind of a theme and a lot of, people live through. Mm-hmm. And so I thought to introduce that into a family movie, especially things that kids would hear that, because sometimes and life is hard, and what am I going to do? It's like all you can do is the next right thing. Right. Anybody that's been through any kind of recovery or anything like that, that's a very common phrase where you're going. Just make the best right choice. Do the next right thing, and sometimes that's all you can do to get through the day. And that's what she's facing, all this loss and concern of what's going to happen in the future. And
right. Ramin, do you have a theme that spoke to you more than any other ones?
I was going to say something very similar to that. How about you though? Did you notice anything?
Overall, I love the idea of generational curses and past sins being dealt with and reckoned with. Something
that's a big theme for an animated.
Yes, it is. The grandfather.
Not something you think is going to pop up in Frozen 2. So I did think that was really creative. And nobody wants to admit when you've got a flaw in your history.
Yeah, and we mentioned this too, but a little bit ago as we were talking, and but there's shades of Rey and Palpatine here. Mm-hmm. That at the end of Rise of Skywalker, she's breaking from what seems inevitable, just her family history and the curse of that. And I think there's echoes, and people can relate to this too. If you've ever, something in the past that has wreaked havoc that you can't quite escape the shadow of. Right. Some things you don't even know, like that you hear stories all the time of something that you find out something that happened that was a wrong that had been committed, and that the wrongs need to be made right, and that there's power in kind of in repentance and reconciliation, and really we have control to do those things. I thought that was a really the big overarching kind of theme of the whole movie, but just so powerful. And then the way you do that is through self-sacrifice and
doing the next right thing.
The next right thing,
exactly.
Yeah. That it might cost you a lot. It might cost you everything to do the right thing, but it's the right thing, and therefore you do it, and thankfully things work together, right? Things work out in the end, and even at great cost and peril. I think that's a great message.
Yeah.
That this movie, and I really went from liking the movie to really liking the movie there.
I definitely agree that my favorite part was when the adventure really starts, from the time she's freezing the water and trying to figure out how to get, and everybody's doing their part in the story. I think that's when the momentum really picks up.
Yep, absolutely. Mm-hmm. I think we've talked about just about everything.
We've covered a lot, yeah.
All right. So,
did you have a favorite character? We talked about some that we liked less, but
I think you both mentioned that you liked Anna less in this one than the first one. You liked and you liked Olaf less than this one, the first one, because he seemed more cynical, and Anna just a little bit less, a little more. What's the word?
Carefree type.
Less carefree. You think Anna was?
Like she was kind of the less go lucky, carefree
Yeah.
type girl. I feel like we met in the first one.
So who was your favorite
Innocent
character in
maybe.
this one? Is that what you just asked, David?
Yeah, I was saying, do you have a favorite character? Not, I mean, more than who is it, but did you have one? You don't have to have one either. That's okay.
I'm trying to think.
I don't know that I did. I mean, I don't know that I did in the first one particularly. I think in the first one, though, I think Anna's the one that has the most likable presence in the first movie. And so that was maybe why in this movie it just seemed a little different. But
She was less likable in this movie.
No, of course, it just took a while to get there because at the end, you're like, well, here's our, she's being a strong hero again.
Yeah, I mean, it always felt like it was for good reason. And I think reasons that like you could admire and respect,
She's got more responsibility.
She does, absolutely.
And
more baggage.
I think that was a good thing, what you said a minute ago, that kind of helps me a little bit in just thinking about why, because she is very desperate not to lose what she's got. She's waited all her life to have her sister back in her life. And so, I can see that, but with Kristoff, I couldn't figure out what is all this defensiveness that just kind of jumped out. So anyway, I think it was just trying to create a running gag that was going to continue throughout the movie. He's going to try to propose to her multiple times, and
Gotcha. So, as we wrap this up, let's give this a rating on a 5 scale. On our 5 mouse ear scale, how would you rate Frozen 2? We'll start with you, David.
Okay, you always like me to give a point. I would just probably say 4, but since I've given some other things 4.
Yeah, give us for Call of the Wild.
I think I gave it a 4.
And I think Onward you gave a 4 too.
Yeah.
You like 4.
Well, 5 is perfect.
You're right.
And so
you can do points. Like you can do 4.1 or 3.9 or.
Well, then I would have to go back and probably change my score on Onward and give it more like a 4.3.
Okay.
And maybe give Frozen a 4.1.
So you like Frozen a little less than Onward then?
I think I did.
Yeah. Okay. 4.1, but that's a good score. Like
Yeah.
I think that's consistent with Rotten Tomatoes and a lot of the commentary on this movie. Ramin, what about you?
I would do about the same. Probably
Yeah.
4.1, something like that.
But they're both pretty close to me. I probably liked one just maybe Onward a little bit better.
I can't. I would like to just do something to be different, but I can't. Like, right in there at 4 to 4.1, 4.2 ish. I liked it a little less than the first Frozen. I liked Onward. I think I liked Onward better in general. Although I can say I really like this movie, but it took a minute for me to get into
what
it.
I really did like, I appreciated that. I mean, it's an epic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an epic journey. It's big. And so it's for an animated movie to do everything they did, man, that's really impressive.
Yeah, and it looks great, and it's just well done, and even if the songs didn't like stick with me, and I've been a little critical of that, I do respect the writing. It's incredible writing. It's incredible,
really good. Absolutely, yeah.
Incredible music.
Same.
The score. So,
It's a different type of story than the first one, which is more just about these characters in this one location, and now we're all going all over the the countryside. It's just a much more epic,
harder to tell a story like that too. More moving parts,
a lot
deeper.
of information. Yeah.
So that's our score. So you 4.1, 4.1. We'll go with 4.1. We'll all three agree on this. That's why we love Disney, is because we have movies like Frozen 2. We talk about those. We'd love to know what you think of Frozen 2. Let us know. You can contact us through our website, whyilovedisney.com, or through Twitter, whyilovedisney1. So thank you for listening to the special quarantine edition of the Why I Love Disney podcast. And we got more coming at you. We got Tron. We got The Parent Trap. We've got the Apple Dumpling Gang. We've got all sorts of movies that we're watching and we're going to talk about here on the Why I Love Disney podcast. So stick with us. Don't miss it. Hey, share it with a friend too. If you're stuck at home and you just got tons of things to listen to, man, watch the movie and let us know what you think. We'll talk about it together. So until next time, have a great week. We can edit that. I've been editing a lot of things.